Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to bring you a weekly recap, this time of Monday Night Raw, which took place on March 23rd at the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm not one to normally talk about recaps, but the one they did tonight to kick off the show for Oba to once again highlight what he did last week was really cool, as if the original moment wasn't cool enough. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't already seen that one. And further to that moment, our first segment of the evening has Brock Lesnar and his advocate, Paul Heyman, making their way down to the ring. Paul Heyman further recaps what happened last night. To his account, Brock took out 15 to 20 masked men and then got distracted by Seth, and that's how the overhyped wannabe ruler got the better of the beast. Paul says, "We've been hearing for years who will be the next big thing, and that never ends up being the case. And last week was Femi's WrestleMania moment." The lights then go out and the ruler makes another appearance. He makes his way down to the ring while the Oba chants fill the arena. Face to face this time, no distractions, but similar outcome. Oba clotheslines the beast over the ropes. Of course, not as cool of a moment as last week, but few things will be. Just the pure possibility of Oba helping to retire Paul's longest standing client is pretty exciting on its own. Oba is just so over right now. It's a ton of fun to watch and experience in the moment. Our first matchup of the evening has Jimmy and Jey Uso going up against Logan Paul and Austin Theory of the Vision. This match didn't have much time to do a lot, though. Before chaos ensues, a turnbuckle is removed and Logan grabs those brass knuckles, as the outcome seems all but inevitable, but is disrupted by LA Knight, who attacks Logan, then slides those brass knuckles to Jey Uso. But by the time he has them, the ref is able to see exactly what's going on, but Jey couldn't care less. A storyline throughout the evening then hits Austin Theory with them, so the Vision then gets the win here due to a DQ. Cole and Graves hitting on the fact that if the Vision were able to get the win here, they would likely have a shot at the Usos for those World Tag Team Championship. And that's exactly what happened later on in the night. It becomes official that next week, as requested by Paul Heyman later on in the show as well, it will be a street fight with the Vision going up against Jimmy and Jey Uso for the World Tag Team Championship next week at Madison Square Garden. Our next segment of the evening has Becky Lynch making her way down to the ring after attacking the Women's Intercontinental Champion in her match, or after her match last week against Bayley. Becky is trying to understand why she gets booed, but the woman who left for a decade gets cheered. Becky then goes on to say she left for 10 months to go be with her family, who actually appreciates her, and because the WWE Universe was tired of seeing her win titles. She then comes back to make the Women's Intercontinental Championship the most relevant title in wrestling. Becky then goes on to say AJ talks about how she ruled the Divas era. Well, Becky says that she murdered that Divas division. Then enters AJ Lee, who ends up giving Becky a rematch at WrestleMania for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. I thought Becky did a really good job on the mic throughout this bit here. One of her better segments in a while. And yeah, just like that, I guess we do have our WrestleMania, next WrestleMania official match. Becky Lynch going up against AJ Lee, which I think has kind of always been the end game, at least in most of our heads. So looking forward to that one. It should be good. Our next match of the evening has the young OG Javon Evans going up against Grayson Waller with Kofi Kingston. This match, of course, coming from Javon refusing to be the newest member of the New Day, and I think Grayson Waller took a bit of offense to that after being New Day's errand boy, so to speak, for the last, what feels like at least 6 months. Grayson does have a few moments of offense here, but for the most part, Javon Evans controls most of this match and does it with style. With a super Hurricane Rana and an OG cutter to get the win over Grayson Waller. And then after the match, we see Kofi kind of giving some tough love, explaining to Waller why he didn't help out during the match. Our next segment of the evening has Paul Heyman back in the ring. Paul tells us why he's having such a rough night, although the crowd really couldn't care less, which basically equates to him saying that all of his talent is either out, pissed off, or just not with the program. Paul then says he has a stalker, and that of Seth Rollins, and invites him down to the ring to do what he must and put him out of his misery. Seth, of course, immediately shows up and jumps on the announce table and is immediately confronted by police. Paul turns around with a smug look and explains that he filed a restraining order. And as Rollins gets escorted out of the building, Heyman talks loads of shit about how Becky is going to now leave him and he's going to jail and not to worry about his daughter because he'll adopt her. And that's when Seth kind of snaps, lands a hit on Paul Heyman as he rushes back to the ring. And then he ends up being handcuffed and escorted out of the building by the police. Officially this time, Paul can then be seen back in the ring with a smile on his face, as if he got the better of the situation. Definitely a battle of two forces here, but Paul, I think it's safe to say, got the better of the two this weekend, as Paul wasn't the one that was handcuffed and escorted off the premises. Our next match of the evening has Asuka and Kairi Sane of the Kabuki Warriors going up against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Neither of these teams as of late have been on the right path. As hit on by Cole and Graves, Bayley using this path with Lyra to try to find another way to the WrestleMania stage after her unsuccessful shot last week at the Women's Intercontinental Championship. And then you have Kairi and Asuka's communication issues, or whatever you'd call their relationship lately. Definitely not usual, very unusual. Speaking of that relationship, we see a couple of instances of that coming into play throughout this match. The first time killing the momentum the Kabuki Warriors had going, and the second time allows Bayley to get a Bayley to belly on the announce table. And then as Bayley goes for an elbow drop, Kairi drags her off the table, but Lyra then is able to take out both Asuka and Kairi and lands a Nightwing to get the win over Kairi and the Kabuki Warriors. After the match, Bayley and Lyra issue a challenge to the current women's tag team champions and that of the Irresistible Forces, Nia Jax and Lash Legend. This does get announced later on in the evening that it will be official, and that will take place next week on Raw in Madison Square Garden. Also noteworthy, we see after this match, shortly after, Asuka points to Kairi, tells her point blank it's her fault that they lost the match and that she needs to make it up to her. Io then kind of shows up as Asuka leaves the scene. Io basically tells Kairi she doesn't deserve to be treated like that. Kairi is clearly conflicted in a very tough situation here. Looking forward to see kind of what they make of that whole story as well. And before our next match, in other news, we see IShowSpeed in the back. He first gets introduced to Dragon Lee and kind of reacquainted with Penta, and then he gets to meet Danhausen and gets cursed. I would love to see more on that, and maybe we will. But otherwise, I'm not really sure why IShowSpeed was here. I'm fine with the fact that he's just there because he's there. We love to do that, especially on the Netflix Raw episodes. But I do find it IShowSpeed quite entertaining, and of course, it's always great to see Danhausen. Our next match of the evening has Dominic Mysterio going up against Penta for his Intercontinental Championship. But before that match starts, our Women's World Champion Stephanie Vaquer assaults Liv Morgan and takes her out of the picture entirely. Dom, clearly quite upset with what just happened with his one and only, attacks Penta before the introduction of the two can officially start. This is a decent match, but due to a very big distraction that caused some hesitation before going for that frog splash due to the return of the Prince himself, Finn Balor. Finn lands some shots on both Dom and JD, but Dom is able to scurry away. Finn clearly not too worried about it though, as he does end up hitting JD with a coup de grace for his troubles, as Finn stands tall here and Dom ends up looking on from the crowd. Very nervous look to him about his future. Our next and final segment of the evening features our World Heavyweight Champion, CM Punk. Punk gets told before he comes out to tread carefully by Jimmy Uso as Jay is in a bad way. This doesn't seem to bother Punk, or at least in the way that they're hoping. Maybe you could argue the opposite. Punk then goes on to say that he's kind of annoyed about the whole situation. He goes on to say that no one in that family can fight for their own without some help. Punk goes on to say that age is just a number. This clearly coming off the fact that Roman said that he was old last week. And Punk is not ashamed of how old he is because he doesn't use just for men, unlike Roman. Then he goes on to say age is just a number and he still feels like he's the best in the world. Punk then says his name and he appears. No, I'm not referring to Joe Hendry. I'm referring to Jey Uso. On his way out, Punk says, "What are you going to do? Eat me to death." I love that line because it is true. Jimmy then comes out and tries to talk down Jay, but shortly after that, we are joined by the OTC himself, Roman Reigns. Roman tells Jimmy to take care of his brother as they've already had their match, and he basically tells him to leave the ring. But as Jimmy is not dragging, but basically escorting Jay up the ramp, Jay is yelling for Roman to get him, take care of Punk, do what you need to. And Roman actually listens, and it kind of feels like a switch goes off. He hits a spear and then ends up power bombing the world champion CM Punk through the announce table. And this is how we end this episode of Raw. So yeah, another episode of Raw, ending with the CM Punk Roman battle. This one, each week they progressively get a little more physical, which I think is the right path. You can only, although the promos are good, I think you could only kind of go that route so long. But you do hear towards the end, you hear Punk being asked if he needs some help. Punk simply replies, "I'm not the one who needs help." Love that line as well. I think, although nice to see the physical altercation, I think it is clear, at least to me, that Punk did get the better this week as well. Overall, a very decent episode of Raw. Yeah, a lot of matches were cut short though. You know, they were decent, but a more story focused heavy episode of Raw for sure. And I've said that before. I'm okay with the matches being cut short if there is a reason to do so. And for the most part, all of these matches did just that. They served a purpose in the bigger picture, but definitely light on the action. And because of that, even with the good storytelling, I think I would have to give this episode of Raw a 6. The highlights of the night probably being, in terms of in-ring action, probably the Javon Evans, Grayson Waller, just always fun to see Javon kind of hold his own. And then I think both of the tag matches, referring to the Usos and Division, it was just cut short, but it was going good for the short time that they had. And then the women's side of that, the tag team between Lyra and Bailey and the Kabuki Warriors was a good enough match as well. And then nice to see Oba kind of show up and show out. Always a great moment as well. But yeah, just a lot of matches cut short. Would have liked to see those run a little bit longer. But enough from us over here at The Push. Let us know what your favorite or least favorite part of this episode was, and perhaps your rating. What would you give this episode of Raw? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, as always, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as well. Just like that, we are 26 days away from WrestleMania. Looking forward to it. How are you all feeling? Please let us know. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you soon. Take care.